welcome back to Hope Beyond the Broken. Thank you so much for the support for the first part of Enduring Pain Through Ministry. I hope that you guys have been able to sympathize or empathize with my story. And now I'm going to leave you with the second part. And if you need any prayers or anything like that, please comment below after the video has completed, and we will keep you in prayer and stay in contact with you. Now for the second part. See you later. But a month in, my grandmother, which is older Pentecostal, you know what I'm saying? What we call rajetabla, you know what I'm saying? Like she was like hardcore, very religious, very, too much doctrine and stuff like that. Came down when she found out that I wasn't going to get married and laid into my parents and put in a lot of pressure and started telling them she has to make good on this. Your ministry is
to honor her.
She has to honor her. They need to honor the church. You guys have a big platform. And whatever the case was, she came in hot and heavy. She stayed in our house for like a couple of weeks and she was just on them daily. This has to get rectified. This cannot happen. This needs to be rectified. And back then, you know what I'm saying? They're going to listen to the elders. And so I was called in. I was told one day, my dad told me it was hard for him. He was crying that day and he said, I'm very sad to tell you this. But after discussion with grandma and stuff like that, this is how I knew who it was, because they told me exactly the whole conversation. They were like, we think he needs to honor you. I think that you guys are going to find healing in that. Mind you, they didn't know the details of the dynamic between me and him. I had just alluded to giving them a little bit of information of his character. Much. But I didn't say much because I was always protecting everybody around me. I had I held that very dear to protect everybody. Nobody was protecting me, but I was protecting everybody. And I was still protecting his image, even though he wasn't living up to a good person. And so I came and I told them about it, and they said, you're going to need to get married. I broke down. I was like, but I don't want to get married. I said, if me being here is going to bring you shame and you're embarrassed about me and stuff like that, I can disappear. I can move to another state with an uncle and I can just have my baby there so people don't have to see me pregnant. They don't have to see none of that. I can come a few years later after everything's settled down. And they're like, nope, that's not. And mind you, my grandmother was right there too. So it was like, no, this is going to happen. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, I was supposed to get married. So it was very much fast track. Now that's in the home setting. When it came to the church, I was called up on a Sunday and I was stripped of my leadership in front of everybody in church. And the reason why. But he didn't. So I had to hold the whole brunt of the sin by myself. Because even though he wasn't a leader in our church, they didn't discipline him, and they didn't
give him discipline?
No.
Oh, wow.
He didn't get a discipline because he didn't have leadership in the church. But they didn't give him no discipline. They didn't call him out in a meeting. They didn't put him next to me to give face. But apparently I carried the brunt of the sin and the shame. So that compounded with my depression and everything else. Let me tell you something. The devil was doing tricks, cartwheels, everything in my head. Like all of that was like in my head. You're the cause. You're the shameful child. You're the black sheep of the family. You're this. You're shaming your family. You're doing this. I was being beaten up every day in my mind. This and that, you did this to your family. You've destroyed your family. You've destroyed the ministry. You've destroyed this. And even though those things weren't true, that was the narrative in my head for years. And the only way you can fix this is to get married. The only way that people are going to even show you as a redeemed person or a person that they can ever even look at you again is if you get married. And so I tell people now, that are in ministries and stuff like that, I don't get to do it as often, because I'm not actively like in a ministry, but have compassion. How about you give them some help? How about you give them some counseling? How about you sit one on one with each of these people individually, see where they're at, see what they need, provide counseling, provide empathy, provide sympathy, provide these things, and take measures that way.
Yeah.
But I felt the whole weight of the sin on me only.
Yeah.
He wasn't held accountable, and you know what I'm saying? And he wasn't recognized from the whole thing. And so when I came to church, even though people were loving on me, I just felt like I'm just shameful. Yeah. So shameful. Like my spirit of being who I um was even the little bit of spirit that I had to be more laughing and smiling and doing all that stuff took a hit for a very, very, very long time. And so in retrospect, when you start thinking as the years went by, or the time went by, because I had my child and I was still there after my child was born, and I sat in the front. I didn't sit in the back where people didn't have to see me. No, I sat in the front, and every time people saw me in the front, I'm no longer singing. I'm no longer leading. I'm just there. And it's like, it almost felt like you were just put, you were put in a place of, there goes the pastor's daughter, the one that, had a baby out of wedlock. You know what I'm saying? And instead of feel protected, even though I don't think they did it intentionally, whether it's my family or the church, I never thought that the church or my parents did anything intentionally. I think it was just the doctrines, of the church. You know what I'm saying? The legalistic parts of the church. And
which is crazy.
Which is crazy because you're going through.
And there's still so many churches that are
they still work that way. You know what I'm saying? And it's a way that is not working.
Yeah.
And it's not helping anybody.
No.
Because people are not growing. People feel like, you know what I'm saying? How do I come back from that? You know what I'm saying? I was a sinner. How am I going to come back for it? My thought process every time I went through something really, really bad that was not my fault, but because of the circumstances and the person that I was with, my answer was like this. One, I can't get divorced because God doesn't like divorce, even though whatever abuse was happening in different capacities. God doesn't like divorce, so I can't get divorced. Now I'm stuck. Two, at the time, mental health was not a thing. You can't go to therapy because you can't tell your secrets to people, because people, let me tell you something. When I got
especially in the position that you're in.
I'm gonna tell you how bizarre this is all. You know HIPAA, right? People can't talk about your health stuff.
Right.
When I was getting prepared, I went to the doctors or anything like that. There was somebody there that was a nurse. I didn't know the lady, but she knew me and knew our parents. She told her mom that was from another church about me, that I had been there for birth control or something like that. And that got to my parents. And it's like, just because we're in a community doesn't mean that you can just violate HIPAA and violate all these things. But because we were so well known and so well recognized, and so we were in a position that people were looking at us and we were example, anybody was looking for a reason to, like, they be acting like goody two shoes, but but they be doing this and they be doing that. They don't know if my mom knew. They didn't know if I was getting married. They didn't know the backstory. They just wanted to talk about something. So you had hand in hand both. You had people that just gossip for no dang reason, and then you had people that just loved you genuinely but didn't know what else to do. You know what I'm saying? They felt sad for you and how to help you and stuff like that. But at that point, I couldn't tell who was there to love on me.
Right. Or who was there to get you,
or who was there to use it against me. You know what I'm saying? Because I had experienced both in life, in ministry. So dealing with pain in ministry can be very lonely if you don't have a good circle of people. And when my daughter told me when she got older that she wanted to get in ministry, girl, Actually, girl, ministries like this, like this, like this, and I went down a rabbit hole and told her all the bad things about ministry because that was my personal experience.
Right.
But I prayed about a week later, and God is like, you can't talk to her about it the way you came up. You know what I'm saying? You can't.
Your experience.
You can't talk to her based off of your hurt and your pain. It's not going to be the same for her.
Right.
So you can't do that.
And so, and it was different times.
And it was different times. So I had to go back a week later and apologize and tell her, honey, this is my perspective. I'm not saying this is for you, but these are some things for you to watch out. This is what you need to do. You need to grow a community that you can trust. I was able to say all these things. And I also told her, I said, but if you ever need anything, I'm here for you, because I know the ropes behind the scenes of everything when you called into ministry. And so, but going through stuff in church can be very lonely, and it can be very painful. Yes. People are scared to tell the truth because we've been wired to think that if you are depressed, then you must have sinned and you caused your depression,
or you're not praying enough,
or you're not praying
reading
enough,
the Bible enough,
or you're not reading the Bible enough, or you must be a sinner, and without repentance. Let me tell you, it took me a lot of years to understand that I was still saved because I thought I wasn't. Mind you, I wasn't doing anything. You know what I'm saying? But because I didn't live my life the way I thought other people thought I should live my life, I thought that I wasn't saved. So you want to know how many times I repented? So many times. God, please accept me, the Lord. My name was already in the Lamb Book books, and He's like, Damaris, it's already there. You've done this 100 times. I'm not gonna put your name in the Lamb Book books 100 times. But I didn't know that until later. You know what I'm saying? But pain in ministry can be very lonely.
Very lonely. Very sad.
And so that's the reason why I think is one of the reasons why we did this is because on the other side of that, I know what the redemption looks like. I know what it is when it was time for me to make the decision, because I stayed in that relationship for a long time and a whole bunch of other stuff happened that were even more dramatic. And I was like, but I can't leave because God doesn't like divorce. Because that's what they tell you. And everything. But God doesn't want you to be in a relationship where you are being abused in any capacity, verbally, emotionally, physically, or any other way. And so God doesn't want that for you.
I also think that ministers that are watching this, or leadership, people that are in leadership, it's important to know that you still have that time to change your ways to how you approach these things. Because at the end of the day, my parents, from this situation and from many other situations that happen within the church, also learned. And it's different because you grow. You give a space to say, okay, you know something, I'm not going to do the same mistake that I did with this person or with this situation in the church to the next person.
It changed a lot.
You know why? Because at the end of the day, you still have an opportunity to change, to grow, to still get wiser in the Word of God and know how to apply the Word of God in those moments and show His grace. So at the end of the day, that's very important when it comes to leadership.
And that changed.
And pastors.
It changed a lot, like the way my parents dealt with things and how they managed the young adults, and you know what I'm saying? I think that a lot of it helped. Over the years, and even in your relationship in the house, it changed in some ways and everything like that. But you can come on the other side. I think that understanding that God loved me unconditionally, regardless, because shame and condemnation were a constant reminder in my mind. I shamed my parents, you know what I'm saying? That was a big thing for me. I shamed my parents. Because they were so good. They were so good to us. Some of it could not be helped because of the state that I was in. But the enemy will, let me tell you, when we talk about that, your brain and your mind is just a place where he can just fester. But it's when you repeat those words back into yourself, or you accept those words as your reality, is when you start living that way. I think that when I finally got the realization that I said, God, I cannot continue being in this place. Like, I am a shell of a person, and I cannot I'm not going to survive. At this point, I
Yeah.
have 2 kids.
Yeah.
I cannot survive another day. It's going to be
Yeah.
him or me.
Yeah.
Because I got angry at some point. I was like, I
Yeah.
cannot continue. I cannot be a shell of a person
Yeah.
raising 2 kids.
Uh-huh.
I didn't have anything to give. I was so
Right.
depleted. Um, and it was his grace and his mercy that
Mm-hmm.
it was like, I love you. I've always loved you. I got you. It's going to be okay.
Yes.
And the minute I told my parents, I can't do this anymore, I'm out. They said, whatever you decide to do, we support. I was like, bet, say less. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
that helped me a lot to be able to make the decisions that I did.
Mm-hmm.
That transpired a totally different thing,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which we can talk another day.
Another time. But yeah.
Because that started a new thing.
Another thing.
A new traumatic situation. That change that I made walking away created some dynamics that were not good or healthy, which we can talk at a different time. But what I want to let people know is that you need to talk. You need to talk to somebody. And like Sarah said, as ministers, as people that are leading people, there's always a space to learn how to do that effectively.
Absolutely.
Under the word of God, but taking in consideration that you're dealing with a human being that has a lot of emotions and things going through, and that we don't speak up. A lot of the times we don't speak up, and which was my biggest thing. Maybe that's why I speak about everything now.
Yeah.
And I'm very
important.
and I'm very transparent and I'm very bold and stuff like that was because what seemed like I was bold when I was younger was a mask all the hurt and the pain and the turmoil that I was already going through my whole life. And so, and not at the hands of my parents, at the hands of other people, unbeknownst to my parents and the enemy. 100%. And so, you know, there is grace for you. There is mercy that God has for you every day. And there is a way out.
There is.
Talk to somebody. And if you don't feel comfortable with any members of your church, get a therapist, get somebody else that's outside of the situation that can walk with you. Sometimes you just need a companion or somebody to just give you permission to be like,
exactly,
I got you. You know what I'm saying? This is going to be hard and I might not,
place.
but I'll walk with you through this. And so for me, that was it. When I was able to tell my parents, I can't do this anymore. And they were like, okay, whatever you decide, we got you. I was like, bet. You know what I'm saying? Because they were my biggest thing was I was shaming the church and I was shaming my parents. That was the biggest thing for me. But when God is like, you're not shaming me. You know what I'm saying? I love you. You're my child. As much as your mom and your dad in the church are my kids, you're my kid too. And you're not a martyr. You're not, I'm not going to have you over here, excuse me, being treated a certain way for the sake of looks. I can take care of my church. You know what I'm saying? And so having those conversations and having that enlightenment, I think is what helped me to make the decision to walk away from that marriage that was so toxic. But ministry is a beautiful thing, but it comes with its challenges.
It's a price to pay, for sure.
And there is a price to pay. If you want to be in ministry, there's a price to pay. But
the reward is so much bigger too. At the end of the
reward, of course, to do what God asked you to do is a reward in itself, because obedience, God rather have obedience than sacrifice. But if you sacrifice your family,
exactly, you're not doing it the right way.
You're not doing it the right way. If you're sacrificing your relationship, you're not doing it the right way. If you're sacrificing yourself to the detriment of yourself, I think that sometimes, even though I wasn't the pastor, we took up the thought of anything that I will do affects the church. So I have to present myself this way so it doesn't affect the church. Well, we need to remember that the church belongs to the Lord.
Exactly.
You are the church. I am the church. So I belong to God, and the same grace for the people is the same grace has for me.
Mm-hmm.
The same understanding that we're trying to do for the church is the same understanding that God has for me. But what He requires from the church is the same that He requires from us, because we are the church.
Exactly.
We're not exempt as pastors, ministers, pastors' kids. We're not exempt from the temptation. We're not exempt from problems, mental health issues, all of those. We're not exempt of, just because we're a pastor or a pastor's kid, we're not exempt from none of that.
No.
All in the contrary.
We get it harder.
We get it harder. We get tempted harder. We think, because, it's that's, we're up there.
We've been chosen to lead,
lead,
a specific ministry and a specific, I would say, it's not a job, but it's a specific calling.
Yeah, it's a calling. And so the reason why I say this is because you need to create that community, not to protect a lie or an image. We need a community that is going to hold you accountable, a community that's going to pray with you, a community that's going to be a safe place for you, that's going to walk you through the process, and that you can trust that they're going to tell you what they need to tell you, and you're going to take what they say.
Too, and ministers too, it's important for ministers to be open, to look for a therapist, to look for someone, a safe place. And I know that's so difficult. It is so difficult. I have a client of mine is a pastor, and she also leads a big organization of women out here in Florida. And we go through these conversations every time she comes, and we cry together. Because at the end of the day, even though you have a good relationship with your pastor or with your other leaders and everything, you still need that safe space. Someone that doesn't know you as a leader, someone that is not going to judge you as a leader, someone that's going to see you for who you are from inside out. And definitely ministers have to look for that help too, because if you're not good and healthy mentally, you can't be. God, like we said earlier, He's going to back up His word, but at the end of the day, you as a person, as a human, you also need to be taken care of mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So I know it's hard, but there's ways. You got to pray about how God can guide you or bring that person to you.
Yeah, for sure. And so, that to me, I've learned a lot from it, because it is what has made me more compassionate towards people and what they're going through, and understanding where they're going through and everything, because I know what it is to feel alone. And for many years, I've discussed this with my sisters. For many years, I felt like I was looking from the outside in.
Right.
Like I couldn't let myself quite feel, because I felt that I would like fall apart. And that created distance. We were already far, but that I created distance, because I just didn't want anybody to be affected by anything that was happening in my life, which is not good. I think that when you're going through something, draw in. Don't push back. Don't isolate yourself, but draw in closer to the people that are closest to you. Sometimes we don't want to hear what they have to say, but sometimes, because we are in the situation, we can't speak those things to ourselves or think clearly. And sometimes, we need to just draw closer to the community, draw closer to God, draw closer to your family, friends, instead of isolating yourself.
Because don't be afraid.
Because I isolated myself for a lot of years because of it. And stuff, just because I didn't want to be a burden, I didn't want to be things and stuff like that. And that's
I think at some point everybody does it. But when you create it, when you actually let it be part of who you are daily, and every day, in every circumstance, that you create that situation of, I'm not going to say nothing because of the, I understand you have to open up. You have to, and there's things that you don't have to say to everybody. You just have to pray to God, to reveal it to me or help me, because sometimes not everything is good to tell everybody either. But it is important to at least have that that outlet to who you can speak to and share. And just let loose, when it comes to your emotions or whatever you're going through.
So, that's pretty much,
thank you so much for sharing that, because I know that even though you're healed from it, at the end of the day, it brings the emotion part. But then again, is the grateful, of God, thank you, because you have brought me this far.
You brought me this far. And like I said, there's an answer. There's redemption at the other end of this. and there's an inheritance
For
for
sure.
us.
Mhm.
And I think that sometimes we've told all of the no's to do,
Mhm.
but we're not told that if we overcome those things, there's a reward on the other side.
Exactly.
And so the reward is your freedom.
Mhm.
You
So
get
beautiful.
you get
Freedom.
your freedom, right?
Yeah.
To be able to think for yourself and have an
Mhm.
idea and be loved and accept love
Mhm.
and accept yourself.
Mhm. Mhm.
All of these are journeys that take a while,
Mm.
but if you decide
Mhm.
to do it,
Exactly.
if you decide to do it,
Mhm.
then it's not going to take as long and it's not going to be
Mhm.
as difficult as you think it's going to be.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Because but you got to make a decision.
Yeah,
You
you
have
have
to make
to.
the same way we make
And it's
bad
a hard
decisions, we got to make
decision. We
good
gotta
decisions.
make decisions to
But yeah,
rectify or
yeah.
fix those
And good
things.
decisions sometimes
Absolutely.
are the hardest decisions to
Mhm.
make because they require work
Mhm.
from us,
Mhm.
for us.
Sincerity, it requires a whole lot.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So I hope that what we shared today
Yes.
is going to be helpful for some people. And if you guys have any questions or
Mhm.
prayers or anything like that,
Prayer requests.
yeah, let
We
us know in the
definitely,
comments or
or DM
DM us.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we are able to like
Mhm.
kind of reach out and talk to you guys about it.
Mhm.
There may be a lot of people in ministry or pastors' kids.
Mhm.
We know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You just don't feel comfortable talking to everybody
Yeah.
that has been through it or understand it.
Or
Yeah,
understands, have
being a
lived
pastor
it.
kids is a unique thing,
Mhm.
and not everybody understands it.
And a lot of people sometimes think about, oh, pastor's kids, they're the worst. I've I've gone that before.
Yeah,
But I'm like, not every situation is the same,
yeah.
and I think they're not the worst.
I think it's just because you've been
They're
held
just,
to a standard that is not for
yes,
you.
that is not for
You're not
you.
the one called to ministry; it's your
Mm-hmm.
parent.
Is your
You know what I'm
parent.
saying? You have to have your own encounter with the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
your own calling, your
Yeah.
own thing. But people just want to bundle you up with your
Mm-hmm.
mom and your dad,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not cool.
Right.
Um,
But
but
unfortunately, because the human is like that, the
yeah,
human being is like, who can
and
I
also
point fingers?
it's up
Who
to
can
the
I
parent,
judge? Yeah,
but it's also to the parent because I
absolutely.
think that if a parent
Mm-hmm.
says we're called to ministry, these are our
Yeah,
children, they're off limits in the
limits.
sense of they're not required to live the way that we live, and they're gonna have to find who God is on their own,
Mm-hmm.
and we're just
Mm-hmm.
gonna all together usher them
Mm-hmm.
that way and raise them that way and guide
Yeah.
them that way
Mm-hmm.
is different. But a
It
lot of
is.
times, unfortunately, a lot of parents do not do
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just focused on the ministry,
Right.
and we just all have to just follow along,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not
Mm-hmm.
cool either.
Right.
So for
Yeah.
sure, yeah, if you guys want to reach out to us and just have a conversation with us or just pray or ask us a question on how we navigate it, and you just want to keep it between us, you can just DM us and we can just go ahead and do it that way. Or if you want to do
Mm-hmm.
it in a public platform,
Mm-hmm.
in which we can just walk with you in that aspect, we can definitely do that. There's no judgment on our side. We've been
Mm-hmm.
through a lot and enough, but we also know what the grace of God looks like, and we know what love is within a family, and we
Yes.
also know that healings come from family and
Mm-hmm.
community
Mm-hmm.
and God.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So that's pretty much
Thank you
it for
again, sis.
today.
Mm-hmm.
We do want to go ahead and please keep in mind we're going to be online in the next few days announcing our winners of our
Yes.
TLC basket. So we'll be announcing that. So look out for that.
Remember to leave your comment on YouTube
Yes.
and Facebook, right?
Yes.
YouTube and Facebook. We're also on TikTok now.
And yeah. So
And
Instagram and Facebook for just keep an eye out because we already have the names.
mm-hmm.
That's already happened. We have it, but we're going to be making the announcements.
Mm-hmm.
But just keep an eye out on those platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and now
Mm-hmm.
TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
for those announcements. And we'll reach out to those people personally to get their TLC baskets.
Yes, yes,
Stuff
yes.
like that.
And thank you so much for the support and the
Yes.
love. We love that you guys are sharing. That's the most thing that we want. And that is the biggest gift you guys can give us.
Yes.
To share these podcasts and
yes.
And
reach out to us.
And reach out to us.
Tell
We
us
love
what
to
you're
hear
thinking.
from you. Exactly. Well, that would be it, right?
That would be it for today. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be vulnerable and to be here and to be in this place with you guys. And we enjoy this journey with you guys. Like we always say, We love you. Thank you
Yes.
so much. And
Thank you.
until next time.
Yes, we
Bye.
love you. Bye bye.